Okay, hey folks, Steve here with another Axis Empires Ultimate Edition video. We're doing more of the Great Crusade. A couple of things just coming out of commentary overnight. I'm much appreciating Max as usual. I think it works out that we're in different. I assume we're in different countries, Max, in different time zones. While I sleep, you can watch and comment. I appreciate that. I it is it possible I got the marker placement stuff wrong? I don't know. I was trying to figure out the math of it because when I was doing the marker placement phase, I mean, I was kind of just I was over here looking at the markers that each side had and just going like, okay, well, these two pair off and go to the delay box. These two pair off and go to the delay box. And it still wound up being able to achieve what I executed here. Is it possible I still got something wrong? Yeah, maybe. Um, I think we had, and maybe this was the thing. We had the subfleet, but even that subfleet, I think maybe I tried to do something with it and then it got blocked, and that's maybe the thing that decided it. I'm not sure because subs really uh, can't contest as far as I can tell, and maybe that's the difference maker here. I'm just looking over like the submarine units are not included in the list of units that can contest, and so I think we had the subs go out. I contested that with Allied interceptors, and then um, the Axis had three plane units, air units. The Allies had three plane units, so those kind of cancel each other out. And then we had more ships. The Axis also have an interceptor, and that got used somehow. I can't recall how. So it's entirely possible maybe something didn't go right. I don't know. I mean, we could. I could be. I don't know. I don't know how else to deal with that right now. If I got it wrong, it's kind of too late because we've already done the delay box. We've already brought units in from the reinforcing box. Um, so if I truly did get something wrong, I guess I don't care. I don't care enough right now to worry about it because it's really in the small amount of things that I'm not terribly worried about. Now, there was one thing that was pointed out to me that would be an issue, I guess. I'm trying to see if like what else would I have done with it? I guess maybe nothing. Um, is we could not have two troop convoys in the Atlantic. Um, and my way to get around that, I was looking at my marker here, and I didn't really have a good reason to have it there. Um, that I could tell. So I made it a troop convoy in the North Atlantic as a correction, and the net effect of that is that some of these guys, that some of the British need to be a bit farther back, so they basically need to be. Um, I guess it would be one, two, three. And let's see, then that guy would go in. Just if you can tell what I'm doing, I'm trying to like treat these guys as if they had shipped into Casablanca instead of Oran. Some of them anyway, because we would be able to shift. Oh no, no, this is right. This is fine. I don't know what I'm doing, guys. I'm just screwing things up. One, two, three. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That would do it. That's fine. It's awfully weird though. I had the right idea. I just didn't have the right placement. So anyway, I'm not going to worry too much about it at this point. But just how I got my units in North Africa is right. I just didn't have the way where the convoy had to be to allow for it. Is a little bit different because you have to build a convoy line. It seems like so. If you're going to transport, just understand what I'm saying. Going from Britain, you got to have a troop transport, and you're basically using each one along the way to plant a single corps down here. So you can basically get two across. But if this was a regular convoy, the American convoy couldn't be your bottleneck is having one troop convoy here. So you have to have an escort troop convoy, which expands your capacity through the sea zone at least. And for the Americans, they're really just using the troop convoy here um, to go from the eastern U.S. Canada box through down to Casablanca. So their capacity or that amount of capacity, one unit, we used twice. These units, just a reminder, came in from the conditional event, so they just appear there as replacements, and then because we have our logistics marker there, and yeah, then the troop convoy is kind of the British getting units into Iran and moving forward. All a little weird, tricky from my perspective on how we're trying to get to where we want to be. Um, and again, if there's a concern about the marker placement, I don't know. Maybe that'd be worth a separate video to talk about. Like, okay, you play this, you block with this. You play this, you block with this. You play this, you block with this. Eventually, yeah, the side with the more markers on what you're trying to do is going to win. The Allies had more markers in aggregate. They had more fleets, and uh, yeah, I could have done something wrong. Oh well, you know what? Allied arsenal of democracy, guys. Fascism doesn't work. You just fascism can't produce enough uh, support markers, guys. That's just the reality of it. Fascism isn't made out for that. You can't support people with fascism. All right, so anyway, we're gonna keep playing, right? I'm just gonna keep playing through because I think I can pick up my pace. Now, here's the thing. I've been yakking for 8 minutes already. Can you believe it? 8 minutes. You've been hearing me talk about convoys, and this, that, and the other. Here's the thing. I'm gonna have to pick up the pace because I don't want to play for like what is functionally 20 minutes of gameplay and then wait a day because it takes time to process the video, upload the video. I do this, over a span of time throughout a day. Uh, when I'm, me actively playing is probably the smallest amount of time that goes into making the video. The rest of it's letting it render and upload, and I don't even need to be at my computer for that. But it takes time. If I keep only playing a little bit and showing a little bit and then responding and playing just a little bit more, we will be here forever. So everybody who's watching, I'm going to pick up the pace. That means you're not going to see everything. You may look at a situation and go, how on earth did that happen? That shouldn't happen if this, blah, blah, blah. Could be I'm making mistakes. That's part of the reality of my situation. But significant events or major changes, I will try to show and talk through as I can. But I got to keep going, especially because when I did my video the other day, I was like, oh man, I want to keep going. This is I'm having a good time. I want to keep going, but I kind of hit the limit of how much I wanted to record, and knowing that I'd have to process feedback. But I kind of want to just keep playing. Right? I want to keep playing the game. I want to see what happens. So we're going to pick up the pace. I'm going to try to cover a lot more in this video, the rest of this video, than I have in the previous ones. But we've got 18 turns, guys, and it's going to take a while. really played through the one turn, and I don't want this to be an 18-part video series. We gotta try to fit more turns in than before. So we're gonna try to pick up the pace. I'm gonna be taking care of the allied turn, maybe the whole allied turn, and kind of show the results. Some things to keep in mind: we do have as the allies a crap ton of support marks. We rolled reasonably well on the delay box, so in this game's version of combat without Schiffskrieg, we could chalk this up to the Germans trying to contest the Mediterranean, them really not doing particularly well, and by hook or crook, the Allies landed in Sicily, rightly or wrongly. Who knows? It's impossible to tell. But they're on the island of Sicily, and they will be progressing beyond that very likely. And the Allies need to consider how soon are they going to try to get into um, Italy proper, and whether or not they can. They still have some units on the beachhead, so we're probably seeing like the last of the main stack of units that are going to enter Italy via that process. What we're more likely to see now coming up is a prep for landings near Rome and some Anzio type of business here, with the goal to take a port, or a city rather, a city. And Naples is protected by mountain passes. Rome is not, but it's a city, so it's got its own defenses. Um, let's see, are there any other cities nearby? Well, not really. We're trying to protect the land connection, because once you can start getting all these guys up into here, then it's really easy to take a city. Whether or not we try to do some kind of landing operation, that will be interesting. I'm wondering what that would look like, and I think we have the support markers to think about it, but not the beachhead marker, because we got to get those guys offloaded into Sicily yet. So it's going to happen. It's going to happen soon, and we may be in a really good position to exploit and make gains on it. The Axis will probably try to move down and get control of like this line at least, because of the mountain passes and the river there, um, and try to get I forget what the historical line was called, but try to get on a defensive line along this area if we can. Understanding that we're Rome is one thing, but as soon as the Allies get a city, then it's going to get that much harder to defend Italy. So we'll have to see what happens. Anyway, I'm gonna get rolling. I'm gonna get playing again through the Allied turn, Western Allies turn, and we'll see where we get to. Um, yeah, I can't sweat any mistakes, guys. I just got to move on. I'm a little perturbed. Maybe I did, maybe this invasion of Sicily could have gotten delayed one more turn. But you know what? You chalk this up to maybe suboptimal play on my part and mistakes as a newbie. And, that's okay. I'm okay making mistakes. I make mistakes in my other series too. Sometimes it's harder to tell because there's too much going on. But everybody makes mistakes. I make mistakes. You make mistakes. It's all okay. All right. I'm going to show you the results of the Allied turn here in a minute, or I'll stop somewhere in between if I think something very significant has occurred. We'll see in a bit. Oh, yes, understanding without a troop placement here, a troop convoy placement, which I guess I could have placed. It might not have been that big a deal. I had the support markers running off of the paratrooper that was destroyed. The Axis, yeah, what am I talking about? It's not the Allied turn, it's the German turn. It's the Axis turn. We're going to do the Axis turn. The Axis can put a troop convoy out here and basically be able to um, project their support markers. But they only have an air force. That's about it. Yeah. So it's going to be, will it be worth doing that? I have no idea. Maybe not. We'll see. Maybe they're going to hold their stuff in reserve, but it will make sense to put a troop convoy out here, or a supply convoy, rather, out there. I will have to look to see. I'll have to see which convoy markers we're allowed to use here, because the Germans are going to have a problem with tracing. They're going to have a hard time tracing a fleet path. They could use the Axis scratch convoy, and then I would just have to double check and ensure that the Germans could use it if they wanted to place air base, or use this as an air base to place an air marker. I don't know. Okay, I'm just going to go play. And again, the Axis turn, not the Western Allied turn, the Axis turn, because it is the Axis player turn first. Okay, I've gone ahead and just played through the rest of the turn. Both the German turn, I sort of opened myself up to this one, guys, and some of this is me just experimenting to see like what works versus what doesn't work and why doesn't it work. And because the Axis was so fallow on support markers, they did have an air marker that they could try to contest, and they did try to contest. The Allies simply had overwhelming support markers due to their good die rolls, and we actually had a landing at Genoa that we used to kind of take the border with France. Now it's a perilous setup here, but basically we had got a beachhead marker placed. We used several support markers as additional convoys to ship from North Africa um, into uh, uh, into Genoa after we had taken it, advanced after combat, and had taken the port, and had inched up around. And we are actually occupying uh, cities in Italy, which means while we're not at Avalanche yet, when the Avalanche card comes up, we're actually in a position um, to take advantage of it on the first turn that we can. And this kind of puts the Germans in a tough position. They don't want to vacate French cities, right? I mean, that's kind of dangerous for them to do because this just gives us an opening to start making more landings. Maybe you don't need D-Day if you're swarming into an under-defended southern France. These guys can try to get home, um, and unless their supply, we turn this into a troop convoy for the Italians, we could try to get guys or try to figure something out to get these guys home. Um, because Corsica and Sardinia don't matter as much if you're already taking mainland Italy. This was to prevent the Allies from having good air bases, but we had a moment where there was really nothing to stop us, so we stomped into northern Italy. And so this idea, like I sent the Germans down even further south to try to just stop the Allies from landing here, but I realized, well, I could just try to land up here, couldn't I could. They can't really stop me, and we got the good enough die roll. It took us an EX result, but we forced them to retreat, and then we were able to move from there. So now the Germans, Italians potentially are going to have to figure out, like, can we swing these guys back up? Can we try to knock the German or the Americans out? Can we try to do that? We might need to do that. Might need to try, um, but even that's going to take some doing and may not be achievable. And in the meantime, um, basically the rest of the allies here, they still need to cross into Italy proper because our blitz marker was up here. But I mean, this coming turn, uh, we're very likely to see that and see Allied units swinging up around the boot and getting towards Naples and fighting for Naples. So even if the Germans make a mad dash north, try to boot the Americans out of northern Italy, they're kind of giving up southern Italy to do it, and that will be enough for Avalanche as well. So it's almost like there's not much that the Germans can do, the Axis player could do, maybe to stop Avalanche, right? It's kind of inevitable. But now we're really forcing the issue, and what we're also potentially doing is making all these other German units in the southern parts of Italy at risk of being cut out of supply. And if that happens, then I mean, you just walk your way up into Munich. You just walk your way up into Berlin. That southern border with Germany is now looking super dangerous, and so this is going to cause the Germans to retract. It kind of reminds me a little bit of a Korean War maneuver, right? The Injong, I'm not going to say that right, so I'm not going to try. You know the one I'm talking about, where the Americans had landed behind Uh, the North Koreans, the communists, behind their main line. Well, that's kind of what we did here a little bit. Now, could I have stopped this any other way? Well, me throwing all my support markers the way I did, even if we had a couple of support markers left, it wouldn't have mattered because or the Americans rather had support marker supremacy, and just we could make that happen at will. And even next turn already, we're going to get some more stuff back from the delay box sooner than the Axis will now. I've already taken care of the delay segment. I've already gotten the reinforcements. The Germans and Italians have some of their support markers back. But at this point, I would believe, looking at the Allied support markers, that like even if it's a push, even if it's all the Axis support markers and Allied support markers cancel each other out on the board, the Allies ought to be able to maintain supply and can um, continue to operate. That's kind of the main thing. So um, yeah, that's that's what they've got to try to do. So with that, we'll get into the July August turn. So technically turn three, the last turn of Operation Husky. I would say from uh, a Western Allied player perspective, it's going quite well. I'll also say that the Axis hasn't gotten a chance to use a blitz marker. They've been failing the die roll to get a blitz marker, which is appropriate. They're fighting in the Eastern Front. Things are intense, but now we're we're pointing a dagger at the heart of Germany here. If we can get over here and onto this rail line, that could spell some pretty nasty trouble. So the Axis number one priority is to stop that from happening. So I'm going to get things underway. I'm going to play through this turn, and when we come back, we'll show the aftermath of the turn. I think I'm just going to do turn by turn at this point, guys. And I know that means you're not going to see everything, and it could increase the chances of me making mistakes that cannot be caught. But I just got to keep rolling here, guys. It'll be less fun. I will say the support marker tug of war solitaire isn't particularly fun. It's more of a math, just even if I get the math wrong, maybe in my stop and go, play when I can mode of play. If I forget something or miss something, that's entirely possible. But even just solitaire, it's just like, okay, plus one, minus one. Do I have a marker? Do you have a marker? Okay. Do I have a marker? Do you have a marker? Okay. Um, and again, without the shell game, it's really hard to feel like the decisions I'm making are you know clever, or even like there's not much to it other than obviously you got to contest it if you can. So you're just going to do that until you run out of markers. So it's just a matter of like, do you let them beat the crap out of you, or do you try to stop them a little bit? And I struggle, almost like what's the point of playing any markers sometimes, because it's like, well, either they're going to stop me or they're not going to stop me, and that's maybe all it comes down to. So I'll say that the support marker stuff, especially solitaire, isn't super fun. It's just very it just, I don't know. It's a bit, I don't know. I just don't like plus one minus one stuff in any game, really. You take an action, it's immediately undone, and then it's just, it's a weird numbers game that just doesn't feel very interesting to play. At least solitaire. I'm sure in an opposed game it's a little more interesting because you don't know what the other person's gonna do. I don't have that benefit here. I just kind of have to play what I can play. Anyway, we continue to get those conditional reinforcements of Americans, which are nicely going into the logistics marker, which is a port which we will continue to pipe into Italy so long as we have that port open. Um, that would be the thing for the Germans to try to stop, is to try to figure out a way to shut down the open ports in shipping. But I just mathematically, they have two air forces and one surface fleet right now as the Axis. The Allies have two surface fleets, two air forces. They also have a bomber. I mean, I don't know. I don't see how it can be. I don't think that the Axis can do much but just kind of take it. That's just that funny thing. Even if they try to use their air marker in defense, their air marker is going to be contested by the Allied air markers because we have an air base in Genoa. for both sides, both factions of the Western Allies. So, um, yeah, I don't know. We're gonna rip apart Italy, and we'll see how bad the situation becomes at the border of Germany in the north. This could be like the big game-winning thing. So, like, what could I have done better? Well, not move so far down south as the Germans, put more units into Genoa, making that a tougher grab. Um, I don't know. I don't know. So we'll play through and we'll see what happens. Okay, here we are right before the start of the autumn turn. So we finished July, August. Kind of had some interesting, wheeling battles in northern Italy. That was, yeah, the Germans kind of rushed north and actually made a good play at trying to clear the Americans out of the northern cities because they did succeed in getting their blitz marker this time and managed to get through. But then right on the opposite side of that, the Allies went with their blitz marker and kind of took it back, put an air unit um, in uh, what do you call it? One of the cities up north there you can see to kind of block or direct retreats and kind of block off a city. And they're still right now in control of multiple, well, I guess they're in control of one Italian city. They do control the port of Genoa at the moment. And we're continuing to use our support marker advantage to ship units in with the escort capability. The Germans have, effectively tried to uh, pull a unit out of Corsica to try to reinforce, because at this point, trying to contest the Americans around northern Italy is one thing. Now we need to protect the border of southern Germany, and if we're not careful, the Allies could start to force their way in that direction, and boy, that would be pretty disastrous. So doing that, the Allies also slowly making their way now up the boot, and they'll be attacking towards Naples. If nothing changes in this next German phase, the Allies will trigger Avalanche, and then Italy will be kind of ripe for the taking. And I'm not sure that there's going to be really anything the Germans can do. I mean, they can try. I guess if they can't, I don't know. This is just one of those weird things. Like, there's only so much that the Germans can do. Their best hope, their best hope would maybe be to attack Genoa and try to knock the supply out so that the Allied units cannot move in the operations phase. But even in the reserve movement, they might be able to slide over into this hex. So there's kind of like I think the situation is determined here. As I look at the Operation Avalanche, okay, so the U.S. ground unit does have to be supplied. So I guess that's the rub. Can the Germans disrupt supply? Do they try to do what they can into Genoa? They're not going to have a blitz marker, so it's really going to be, can they get one attack off to make a difference? And right now, the Allies have the advantage of support markers. I'm kind of doubting their capability to do it. So I think Italy's kind of going to be doomed at this point. Um, just to show the cards, so like Operation Husky, often a discard pile. Operation Citadel, often a discard pile. The next card for the Germans is Total War Production, which is a reusable card. It just gives them 2 steps. Those are going to go into Munich probably, and to try to help defend and back up that whole situation. I guess one of the opportunity costs that we accepted, maybe we didn't have to. I was worried about getting the Atlantic Wall set up securely. I could have put a Fortress Europa, Fortress Hex, or I guess Fortress Unit in Italy somewhere. I think I could have done that, and it's kind of too late to worry about it now, but I'd rather worry about putting those in at the mountain passes at this point to try to stave off any potential Allied efforts. So that's kind of what we're going to need to do, I think, to make all that work. For the Allies, much more interesting of a card. We're going to get some replacements. Those are probably, if they don't go into North Africa, are probably going to be, some of these are going to go into Britain itself. We're going to start prepping for a northern attack, just so that we can make something happen there. And then again, the conditional event segment for the 2 turns here in the fall, we need to get a supplied U.S. ground unit occupying a city hex in Italy, basically, and then we apply Operation Avalanche. Our 2 main ways that we're going to probably do that is either in Naples by moving these units up, and again, we still have a U.S. unit in this HQ. I've just got stuff flying all over the place. So we have a U.S. unit in that stack. We've got to get them up. We also have this guy. So probably not going to be too hard, but like we could probably get into Naples at that point. If we need to use a blitz marker to do it, we most certainly can try. So I see Naples falling. That's probably going to trigger it anyway, but right now we're going to be potentially triggering it in the north with this sort of American northern invasion that seems to be going okay. So it feels like Avalanche is going to happen no matter what. I'm not sure there's anything the Axis can really do to stop it now, and we need to start thinking about the long-term defense in the mountains to keep, keep the Allies out, basically, right? The next card for each side, just talk about we're gonna have to pick a pending card. I'm just using the historical narrative because it makes it easier for me to just appreciate the cards without having to select them too much. This is the historical card that's used next. You get some steps, and then you get some event die rolling, which is always interesting. So we'll worry about that in the winter. That'll be the winter card, and then for the Americans, they're going to do the Eureka Conference, which is the historical option. You can see we start getting some more Air Force support markers in. We increase our minor country production, more steps, and then the conference table, which all these things I think are probably good choices for winter. Winter is 2 turns, so you don't need to worry about something that's going to have a lasting effect over multiple turns, or even blitz markers necessarily. So these are probably all fine cards to pick within reason. There might be a better German card to pick here, but I'm just going to let the historical narrative play out in the cards. Of course, the game situation is going to start to get harder and harder to process that way. So yeah. I should point out there's not really been any change in the strategic hex stuff yet, and we've not done a factory bombing with our bomber. We're keeping it in the strategic warfare box because that one additional turn push out of the Axis markers is helping a lot in terms of the Allies keeping control of the support game and being able to offset or defeat the Axis very generally. We did have some less than great die rolls for the Allies support markers this last delay box, but it's okay. All right, we're going to bang through autumn here and see what happens. I'll show the result after this next turn, which is functionally turn 4. Okay, I'm showing the aftermath of the main operations part of the turns, just so you guys can see, because we're gonna talk through Avalanche because it does still apply here. I ended up deciding to not even attack Naples. We didn't need to. The Germans had attacked Genoa, ended up getting a attacker defeated and had a retreat, which they accepted. But in the Allied counterattack, we pushed them even back into the mountains, just kind of hanging on by a thread there. And I'm just maneuvering the Allies kind of up the boot of Italy now because we didn't have to attack. I mean, why spend any resources and maybe take step losses if we don't need to, because we still are in control of 2 Italian cities. So per the Operation Avalanche card and the conditional events segment, which we're now at, if a supplied U.S. ground unit occupies a city hex, and that surely be the case, in a Axis minor country, you may select that country, selecting Italy, and apply Operation Avalanche. Running through that very quickly, we remove, all right, so, okay. There's no exceptions here for Italy or anything else, but this happens once per game. Remove all the select country's support units, fortress units, partnership units, war economy markers, and convoy markers from the game. Okay, so that's gone. No support units. So that stuff goes away. And that would be stuff on the turn track that the Axis had at one time. So all that goes away out of the game. I don't think we had any partnership units even out. But if I'm wrong, I can fix that. No convoy, so that's out. And yeah, the war economy marker we took off, so no more Italian production, really. Remove all the selected countries' remaining counters. Place those with a delay stripe in the delay box, those without a delay stripe in the force pool. So these guys go in the force pool. This guy goes to the delay box. Okay. Place though, okay, yeah. The minor country remains aligned to its current faction. So Italy is still aligned to Germany. If the selected country has an associated British 122 colonial unit, place that unit in the delay box. Well, we do. This guy. So he goes in the delay box, so he'll be coming in as a. Figure these as like the Italians who supported the Allies as they came into the country. If the selected minor country is an Axis country, place a no occupation marker in its capital, which means we don't necessarily need to worry about the occupation rules, is what that means, I believe. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to find a no occupation marker fast enough. I guess I forgot to grab one. But without worrying too much about it as I go to find one, we're going to know that, right? No occupation marker should mean, as I go to double check, yeah, this is no longer subject to Axis minor country occupation, which means for the remaining German units, we can build them up to multi-step units to try to contest all of this. So yeah, very, very good, very good, and that's it. So when we look at the very next turn, so the next fall turn, Operation Avalanche has happened. What I'm not in a good position to do here is just jump right into these hexes to like keep them occupied, and we will need to keep them occupied. But the Germans have to make a decision. Do we try to run this guy back down to Rome and kind of hold it, try to hold it? And they could certainly try to do that. There's nothing truly stopping them from trying. Or do we try to get this guy, you know, boy, he's going to have a hard time. He can maybe get up to here and try to hold out there. So it's like, okay, do you delay the Allies by even a little bit? Does that make a difference or no? And I guess that's going to be that's the trick. That's the rub that the Germans are going to have to decide. I'll decide that on the German turn as it stands right now. The Allies can pretty simply, you know, if they don't go into Rome, go 1, 2, 3, and, you know, 1, 2, and, you know, depending on what they want to do about Bologna, you know, Italy's going to be out for the count, basically. So, not really much we can do. Not much we can do. If we put the German units in there, you know, it's going to maybe delay them by a turn. Those steps are probably better spent defending Germany, so I may try to get that guy north and just accept the situation as is, and that may be the best that we can hope for. So yeah, time to abandon Italy, I think, is what's going to happen, and we'll go. I'll go do the delay box. I'll go put the reinforcements on the board, and we'll play through the very next turn, which will be a mud turn, and that will affect some decision making as we go. So if you recall in previous videos, in like Barbarossa, mud, kind of makes Zox very sticky. It's hard to maneuver. A lot of retreat results get nullified or get reduced. So it's going to start to turn into a bit more of a grind as we go. But you'll see we're really going to start to make supply a nice, clear, easy thing now. The Germans really have limited capability to project any force into the Western Med. Um, and we'll be looking at how to solidify gains, how to start looking at southern France. Granted, winter is going to be more about positioning and shipping at this point than anything, and I do think I'll be spending a lot more of our shipping getting stuff into Britain. Okay, here we are at the end of fall. The mud certainly slowed things down in terms of operations in northern Italy. There is a bit of a line that the Axis has, not being able to move out of enemy Zox kind of screwed the Axis a little bit because they would have wanted to set up a different defense in the mountains, the Alps there, and so they're kind of in a weird spot. But the Allies are continuing to kind of head up the coast of Italy. We now have some occupation forces in Rome and Naples to keep them down. Technically, Italy still controls one city in its home territory, but I'm not sure they're going to really get the opportunity to place any more units. So kind of unlikely that we'll see those guys come out because they lost their production. So really, it's just the Germans are going to abandon the Po Valley. If I don't know if that's considered the Po Valley, Bologna. They're going to abandon Bologna and get into the mountains as soon as they can to watch out for any sneaky Allied business trying to get into southern Germany. So kind of a tense spot. And so like the Italian campaign, we could generally see as being over. But meanwhile, in Britain, we are now building up forces in Britain proper, thinking through like what do we want to try to achieve here when we start looking at the summer offensive for 44. Right now, the victory calculation going into the next turn, and that's when you do the calculation, not really at the end of this turn, but just thinking ahead for a second. The right now using the regular game VP track, which I happen to have out, not the VP track on the player aid because that's errata. It was intended to be for the Fire in the East scenario. The Germans started with, I believe it was 7 victory score, strategic hexes, due to what they own in the East, that's off map, technically speaking, and the stuff that they've taken control of in the Western Theater. They control 4 strategic hexes in the East, plus Oslo, Brussels, and Paris. That makes 7. Now that we've taken a gray strategic hex from them, they're down to 6. We need to knock them down 1 more to shift the Axis tide marker to the +1 victory point, which affects their delay segment die roll. So we would like to bring that down, which means strategically, like in a strategic effect perspective, we would appreciate the ability to try to attack into Norway and liberate Norway. That might be a nice grab. I don't know that we're going to have the capability to really do that, and we don't want to put too much at risk for eventual operations at D-Day, but it would be nice to kind of knock that out because it's kind of situated far away and it's hard to deal with. We'd like to continue to try to attrit the Germans in Italy, so that'll always be a somewhat active theater once we bring up the rest of our reinforcements. We want to probably start to pressure down here as well. And again, start thinking about how do we get our big attack. I suspect we'll be playing a card in the summer season, a couple card plays from now that will help us do that. And we'll have to monitor how the cards are coming out. And meanwhile, the Germans had been working to put the fortresses in place. We do have a fortress in the mountains there with the HQ to kind of help protect the path into Austria. So yeah, kind of interesting. I think this is as far as I want to take this particular video. So for a part 2, we ended up covering really 5 turns of activity. A lot of it off camera. Sorry for that, but that's just the way we got to go. I would think in the next video we'll take care of winter and spring at the very least, and maybe start talking about that next summer turn. But these next turns are going to become really important. I'll also point out that while for this winter check, the Germans will still have 4 eastern uh, strategic hexes. In spring, they're going to be down to 3 in the east, which will knock them down into the 1 BP area anyway. So maybe I don't need to grab Norway. Um, just a couple of things I need to think through, like where do I want to focus effort? When do I start to push into southern France? Because I suppose there's not a lot stopping me from, solidifying this situation and then starting to push. We could even do a springtime, maybe try to do some early drops here where the Axis has less support capability. Um, they still have air, but even their air is up to a certain limitation. We could start to really affect them down there, and maybe not even do a D-Day over here, like land over here, and have a southern push up. I mean, a lot of things are possible that we could think about. So anyway, that's all for the next video, guys. Hope you enjoyed this one. If you see anything that feels like a glaring error somehow, I mean, we're going to move at a pace now. It's going to be really hard for me to go back and fix anything. So if you see something, say something, but don't put too much stock in it, because I really can't go back and fix it. I'm not going to go back and fix stuff at this point unless it's like, oh yeah, that's an easy thing I can just correct. Um, Now that the Allies are like on the continent, things are going to start to get easier. We're going to be dealing less with wacky support placement for naval stuff. It'll be more about the operations in theater on the ground, and the rules for that are pretty well set in my mind. So yeah, anyway, we'll see you in the next one, guys. Hope this was interesting just to see how things are evolving from Sicily to Italy, the surprise invasion at Genoa, and now the slog in the Italian mountains, and the winter considerations. We'll have some fun stuff to look at. In the next video, I will talk about the next card set that will be played, as well as the pending card for spring, which will have some interesting bits to it. So see you in the next one, guys. Take care. Keep gaming.